Hello students, welcome to Biotech Academy. Following the discussion on amino acids, peptide bonds and its characteristics, and on Ramachandran plot, what we'll consider next is protein structure in general. So if we consider the protein structure, what we have is a peptide. And we all know what a peptide is because we are joining the two amino acids via a covalent linkage that is known as peptide bond. So if we consider protein structure, we have a peptide. And what is a peptide? A peptide is a combination of or a chain of amino acids which are connected via peptide bonds. Alright. So now what is the difference? What is the difference between a peptide, a polypeptide and a protein? There are very major differences, although they are connected, but there are differences among all these terms. Okay, so we have peptide. Okay, we have another term that is a polypeptide and a protein. Okay, so we'll understand what each term means and what are the differences among all these terms. Okay, so what is a peptide? A peptide is a short chain of amino acids which are connected via peptide bonds. So that is a peptide. Then we have another term that is oligopeptide. Oligopeptide is few amino acids, like up to 9 numbers of amino acids, when they are connected in the form of a chain, in the form of a linear chain by peptide bonds, that is known as oligopeptide. Okay, whereas a polypeptide is a larger string of amino acids where each amino acids, they are connected through peptide bonds, and the number is generally above 9. So up to 9 it is oligopeptide. So up to 9 amino acids, when there is a chain of amino acids connected via peptide bond, up to 9 numbers, 9 amino acids are participating, then that is an oligopeptide. Whereas if the number of amino acids increases from 9 to multiple numbers, like in double digits, then that is a polypeptide. Then what is a protein? Now a protein is a polypeptide. Okay, so a protein is also a polypeptide, means it has the number of amino acids are more. Okay, but there is a difference between a polypeptide and a protein. And a protein is a polypeptide where the amino acids are connected through peptide bond. So it is a polypeptide, but it also has a 3-dimensional conformation. So the polypeptide is in the protein, it is no longer a linear chain. However, it is folded into a certain configuration, certain conformation. It takes place, it occupies certain structure, 3-dimensional structure, that is a protein. Alright, and we'll discuss what are the differences. Okay, what it means. It means all polypeptides, all proteins are polypeptides. Okay, all proteins are polypeptides, but all polypeptides are not proteins. And why? The reason being that a protein is definitely a polypeptide, but all polypeptides are why not proteins? Because all polypeptides may not be able to attain a stable 3-dimensional conformation. So it will no longer be a functional protein. It is rendered non-functional. So all polypeptides are not proteins. So you understand? all proteins are polypeptides, but all polypeptides are not proteins. Okay. So now if we look at, I'm drawing a structure over here of a peptide. Okay. I'm drawing a peptide structure. So we have an amino terminus. Okay. Then see alpha carbon. Then again an alpha carbon. Now R2. Remember, these R groups are arranged in trans conformation. So you have to take care of this while drawing a peptide structure, that these side groups are always in trans conformation. Okay, so what you can conclude from this? Here 3 different amino acids are involved. So it is a, what it is? It is a tripeptide. Okay, so it is an oligopeptide. It is not a polypeptide. It is a tripeptide. It is a tripeptide. 3 amino acids are participating, and you remember why these are in trans conformation? Because to avoid steric hindrance. Alright, and so this is a tripeptide. And what is the physiological pH of the body? Physiological pH is pH 7. So this is a tripeptide, and this tripeptide at physiological pH, which is pH 7, this we have this tripeptide has lost an proton. It has lost the proton which is belonging to the carboxyl group, whereas it has not lost, or it has retained the proton belonging to the amino group. So the proton is retained over here, whereas the proton is lost over here. At the carboxyl terminal, the proton is lost at physiological pH, which is pH 7, whereas this is retaining. Okay, so here what you have is, you have an N terminus and a C terminus. This N terminus is also known as amino terminus, and this C terminus is also known as carboxyl terminus. Okay, alright. So now next is by convention. Okay, by convention, the beginning of the protein is always in N terminus. The beginning of the protein will always be N terminus, whereas the end is the C terminus. Okay, so by far what we have studied? We have studied what is the difference between a propeptide, a polypeptide, an oligopeptide, and a protein. Alright, so what all we have in protein? We have a carboxyl terminus or the C terminus. We have an amino terminus or the N terminus. So there are 2 termini, N terminus and C terminus. Beginning is always N terminus and the end is always C terminus. Okay, and we have different R groups which are associated with different amino acids participating in the polypeptide formation and ultimately the proteins, and these R groups, which are variable in their properties, will behave differently because of their inherent different properties, because they are charged, they are polar, they are non-polar, and so on, and they are acidic, they are basic, and so on and so forth. Alright, now the next question is, then if this is a linear chain, how does this linear chain or linear string of amino acids which are connected by peptide bonds takes a 3-dimensional conformation? So there must be different types of bonds which must be involved in attaining that conformation. Okay, so there are 5 different structure, there are 5 different types of bonds which help in attaining the 3-dimensional conformation and its stabilization. So there are 5 different types of bonds which 5 different types of bonds in protein structure. So these 5 types of bonds are: first is peptide bond, which we have studied in great details. Okay, then the next is ionic bonds. The third is disulfide bonds. Fourth is hydrogen bonds, and fifth is hydrophobic linkages. So we have these 5 different types of bonds which play pivotal role in the formation of the 3-dimensional conformation of a protein structure. Alright, so peptide bonds we have studied in great details earlier also. However, just to brush up, it is a type of covalent bond. This peptide bond is a type of covalent bond where the carboxyl carbon atom of one amino acid combines with the nitrogen atom of the amino group of the other amino acid, and a bond is formed. It is a type of condensation reaction. The bond dissociation energy is very high, and this is a kind of strong interaction. Okay, the other important thing is all these bonds, some of these are strong bonds while others are weak interactions, and these combination of the strong and weak interactions makes the protein structure or protein 3-dimensional conformation flexible. Okay, flexible in the sense that there are certain bonds which dissociate with very less energy. So even slight changes in the pH or temperature or variable condition, so at that particular moment, at that particular point of time, when the normal condition is altered, the protein structure gets denatured because weak interactions are involved. Okay, so both weak as well as strong interactions, both are essential. Strong interactions to maintain the conformation, and weak interactions play important role when the conditions are not favorable. So at that particular point of time, when the conditions are not favorable, what happens? These weak interactions, they break apart, and ultimately the protein conformation is altered, and thus the functionality is lost. We'll study further that these 3-dimensional conformation, so the tertiary and quaternary structure, the 3-dimensional conformation which makes the tertiary or quaternary structure of the protein is very essential, because it is in that form that particular protein is functional. It is not functional in the primary or secondary structure, because the proteins, they have to perform certain important biological functions, and those functions can only be possible if it has attained that particular conformation. Okay, so you have to keep this thing in mind, that both weak and strong interactions both are important. Alright, so this is about peptide bonds, and there are many important characteristics. That is, it's a condensation reaction, it has partial double bond nature, and all those things you have to keep in mind about peptide bonds. And what is the role of these bonds? These bonds, they link the two amino acids together so that the particular string or a chain is of amino acids is formed, a linear chain. Okay, now coming to ionic bonds. So by definition, what is an ionic bond? Ionic bonds, by definition, it is the bond which is formed between two oppositely charged ions. One is positively charged and one is negatively charged. And we know that the opposite charges attract each other, and because of this attraction between two oppositely charged ions, a bond is formed that is known as ionic bond. So how does an ionic bond can be formed between a protein which is composed of amino acids, and these amino acids are contain both positive and negative charges. So it is a zwitterine. Okay, remember the properties of amino acids, it is a zwitterine. So how can an ionic bond be formed? The reason is that you must remember about the properties of amino acids, that there are certain amino acids which have additional acidic or basic groups in their side chains. Okay, so ionic bonds is formed between the ionized acidic or basic groups of the R group. Okay, so these acidic or basic groups in the R group, additional acidic or basic group in the R group, they get ionized, they get charged, and a force of attraction is among the two oppositely charged ions, oppositely charged R groups, and an ionic bond is formed. Alright. So the R groups, what the R groups contain? They contain an acidic, matlab COOH group, or basic, that is the NH3 group, additional. Apart from the normal amino acid structure, which has an amino group, a carboxyl group, an R group, and hydrogen atom. So these are present in the amino acid, but the R group, they contain additional these groups. So how an ionic bond is formed? On ionization of these groups which are present in the side chain. Okay, so the acidic group, it loses a proton and becomes negatively charged, while the basic group, it gains a proton and becomes positively charged. Okay, there was a mistake over there. So now we have a negatively charged ion and a positively charged ion. These cancel out each other, but we have additional positive or negative charges in the R group, and a bond is formed between these oppositely charged ions. So how does the bond look like? Because suppose this is a linear chain of amino acids. Okay, so these are amino acids which are connected via peptide bonds. Okay, so this is a polypeptide. Now take into consideration these two amino acids. Okay, so here this amino group contains the basic group. Okay, this amino acid contains the basic group which is positively charged because it is accepting a proton, and this amino acid is the R group in this amino acid is containing an acidic group which is negatively charged because it is losing an H group or a proton. Now these two, when come in close vicinity, a force of attraction is generated among these two positive and negative charged ions, and a bond is formed, and this is known as ionic bond. Okay, I hope it is clear to you all. So it can form between these two as well. So it contains an acidic group which is negatively charged, a basic group which is positively charged. On coming closer, a bond is formed, and that is known as ionic bond. All right. Now, what are the characteristics of such bonds? These are weak interactions. Okay, these are weak interactions. They are only formed when these charges, they are in close proximity to each other. All right. And these are weak interactions. Their bond dissociation energy is very low. So and how does the ionization takes place? Remember, the ionization depends on the surrounding pH. So even a slight change in the pH where the protein lies, even a slight change in the pH can alter the ionizing property of these R groups, and the bond will dissociate. Okay, so they are highly dependent on how close or far these R groups are, and also on the surrounding pH. So even very minute changes in the pH can cause breakage of these bonds. Okay, so these are kind of weak interactions. All right, now next is disulfide bonds. Okay, the third type of interaction which plays role is the disulfide bonds. So what are disulfide bonds? As the name suggests, sulfur group is involved. Di, 2. So when two sulfur groups are involved in such kinds of bonds. So disulfide bond is a type of covalent bond. Okay. So because it is a covalent bond, it is a kind of strong interaction. These are a type of covalent bond. These disulfide bonds, they are type of covalent bonds which is formed between two thiol groups of cysteine residues, with thiol group is present in cysteine residues, and between two cysteine residues these disulfide bonds are formed and form cysteine. Two cysteine form cysteine. Okay, so these cysteine and they are sulfur containing amino acid. Cysteine is a sulfur containing amino acid and it has an SH group. So the R group contains SH group. SH. Okay, I was just correcting the writing. These are lost and the linkage is formed between two sulfur residues. Okay, two cysteine residues. Alright, so because this SH group is highly reactive and polar in nature, this type of bond is formed. And if two molecules of cysteine are lying in together, they are alongside, they are in close, they are just neighbors of each other, like the linear chain is folded, and if their cysteine is here, one cysteine is here, then a disulfide bond will be formed between these two residues. Okay, and the sulfur group, they are oxidized because there is removal of hydrogen. So oxidization is addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen. So the SH group is oxidized and a disulfide bond is formed between two neighboring cysteine, not neighbors but they're alongside each other. So these two cysteine residues, they are connected via these disulfide bonds, and because it is a type of covalent bond, so the bond dissociation energy is high and it is a strong interaction. And the other important thing is these disulfide bridges can be formed between cysteine residues which are part of the same polypeptide, or they are part of different polypeptides. So a protein can be composed of single polypeptide, or it can have multiple polypeptides. So suppose if a protein is composed of two polypeptides, polypeptide A and polypeptide B, and one cysteine is here and one cysteine is here, and they are arranged in such a way that they are lying alongside each other, so a disulfide bridge will be formed over between these two cysteine residues which are part of different polypeptide chain. Okay. Discussing about disulfide bonds, we'll come to the fourth type of interaction, and that is hydrogen bonds. So we have also studied hydrogen bonds in previous lectures. So hydrogen bond, what is an hydrogen bond? It is an electrostatic interaction, electrostatic attraction between hydrogen atom which is bonded to an electronegative atom and oxygen atom of the other molecule. Okay, so that is called an hydrogen bond. So this is because of the variable difference in the electronegativity between of oxygen or hydrogen atoms. Why? Because the larger nucleus of this we have already discussed, but I am just repeating. The larger nucleus of oxygen, if there is sharing, although there is sharing between electrons, but the greater negativity of oxygen, what it causes, it pulls the shared electron towards itself, because its nucleus is bigger and it has more charge, so it pulls the electron towards itself. And because of this unequal sharing or unequal contribution, the oxygen attains partial negative charge and the hydrogen atom attains partial positive charge. Okay, so the oxygen, there is sharing between these two atoms, but this becomes partial negative charge and this becomes partial positively charged because of the unequal sharing. This is pulling the shared electron towards itself because its nucleus is stronger, so it is attaining a partial negative charge and it is attaining a partial positive charge. And the neighboring also has this. So now we have two opposite charges aligned in close contact, in close areas. So there are two oppositely charged ions, so there will be an attraction between these two opposite charge ions, and this forms hydrogen. This is known as hydrogen bond. Okay, because hydrogen atom is involved. Okay, so these bonds, they help in stabilization of the secondary structure, which may be alpha helix or beta pleated sheath. We'll study about all these structures. What are the different levels of, there are different levels of protein structure. What are primary? There are 4 levels of protein structure. We'll study about each one of them in great detail. So what is the role of these hydrogen bonds? These hydrogen bonds, they are involved in imparting the secondary structure and their stabilization, because they are also weak bonds, but larger number of these bonds. So although they are weak interactions, but because of the great numbers of hydrogen bonds, that they impart stability as well. Now coming to the next, and that is the last type of interaction, that is hydrophobic linkages. This is the fifth kind of bonds which are involved in formation and stabilization of the three-dimensional conformation of protein structure. So these are hydrophobic linkages. And what are hydrophobic linkages? Hydrophobicity is, remember, hydrophobicity is water repelling nature, and we have studied the properties of R groups, that there are certain R groups which are hydrophobic in nature. That is, there are certain amino acids where the R group is hydrophobic in nature, and so in an aqueous environment in our body, there is aqueous environment. So in an aqueous environment, these hydrophobic residues, they must be aligned in such a way that the structure is stabilized. They are water repelling, so they have to be aligned in such a way that they are in minimal contact with water, because if they'll come in contact with water, there will be increase in randomness and the structure will not be stable. So the stability is imparted by these hydrophobic interactions by alignment of the hydrophobic residues which are buried in the interior of the polypeptide, such that they are minimally exposed to the water or the aqueous environment. So these are 5 different types of, so what we have studied 5 different types of linkages which play important role in the attainment as well as the stabilization of the three-dimensional conformation. And those 5 types of interactions are, for number 1 is peptide bonds, then second is ionic bonds, third is disulfide bonds, fourth is hydrogen bonds, and fifth is hydrophobic linkages. Now these 5, all a combination of these 5 types of interactions, they impart the stability to the three-dimensional conformation of the protein, and that three-dimensional conformation of protein is essential for its functionality. Now coming back to protein structure, there are 4 different levels of protein structure, alright. So 4 different levels of protein structure are, first is primary structure, second is secondary structure, third is tertiary structure, and fourth is quaternary structure. Okay, so these are 4 different, and this is labeled as primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary structure. These are different levels of protein structure which we'll study in the next lecture. So these are 4 different levels, and there are 5 different bonds which are involved in the attainment of these various levels, and it is essential that it is essential for the protein to be functional if it is attaining that tertiary conformation, and in that tertiary conformation only the protein is functional. If the conformation is lost, the protein gets denatured and it is no longer able to perform its specified function. Okay, so I hope you all have understood the basics of basic role of each type of bonds in which we have discussed, and you this discussion. Now next we'll discuss about the different levels of protein structure. All right, until then you can go through the basics from the reference books, which is Leninger, that is, or Voigt and Voigt. So these are some of the good books, these from where you can get your concepts very clear. And if you find the content helpful, please hit like and subscribe to the channel as well, and to study hard. Thank you.